All right, welcome back to the last bit of the exercise. We're going to be looking at powers of imaginary numbers. And by powers, we mean integer indices or repeated multiplication. So, first one up is I to the power of 1. Well, that's just I. Wow. What about I squared? Well, just by using the rules of multiplying square roots, we know that that is equal to minus 1 by the definition of I. Then we have I cubed, which is just I squared times I. So we've got our minus 1 there, times I gives us minus I. I to the 4 ends up being 1. And I to the 0 is just I divided by I, which is 1. And I to the 5 is I to the 4 times I. So we're going back to I. So you can see that 0 is a multiple of 4, and they're the same number. You can also see that 5 is 4 plus 1, and 1 is obviously 0 plus 1. So it actually turns out that in general, I to the 4n, for any integer n, is equal to 1, and I to the 4n plus 1 is I, and I to the 4n plus 2 is minus 1, and then we get minus I for the next power, back to 1, I, so on, so on, so on. Okay? So it makes it really simple to work out what the powers of I are. Let's have a look at example 4. Okay? So they're asking us to figure out what is I to the 13. Well, I to the 13 is equal to I to the 4 times 3 plus 1. We're just looking at what the remainder is after we divide that power by 4. Okay, so we've got that 1 there, so therefore I to the 4n plus 1 is equal to I. And the final part of this example, they want us to figure out 3 times I to the 4 times minus 2I raised to the 3. So it's always easy to break these up. 3 is obviously 3, and I to the 4 is 1. And if you raise objects in a bracket to the power of 3, then you obviously raise each factor there to the power of 3. So we've got minus 2 to the 3 times I to the 3. And, well, 1's not interesting. So 3 times minus 8, which is 2 to the 3, times I to the 3 is minus I. And we've got a minus times a minus, so we've got positive times a positive. So 3 times 8 is 24i. Okay, so even when it gets a little bit complicated like that second one, we still need to go back to these rules about powers of I. All right, so you can finish off by doing question 4 in the exercise. And that's it for today's lesson. I don't think it's going to be very hard. It's a nice, easy introduction. You just need to remember that I is equal to the square root of minus 1.